forest fire ban in Malaysia. This is good. Hopefully it's implemented, and also that the police goes after it when there is something like that. It's enforced. And with the loss of forest, we lose the resilience against climate change. We heard some words from the minister also that there is the growth of palm oil depends on a certain climate. And if the climate is disturbed totally, the production of palm oil will be in danger as well. So it's not doing anything for the Europeans to join in for the activities for climate protection. It's also for everyone in this world and also for Malaysia. And we have, when we destroy forests, we have a loss of biodiversity of the gene pool. And the tropics or rainforest is sort of the genetic kitchen of the world. And if you don't have any ingredients to cook with, there is no more kitchen. And we need this genetic information for other products in the future to improve food production, for instance. You might need this genetic information which is sort of stored in those rainforests. We don't know exactly how much there is and what it is, but if we destroy it, it's not going to be anything. And if we lose the forest, we lose, of course, a natural and economic asset. And we might have a poor rural development. I mean, if we have devastated areas, there's nothing you can feed people on. So to keep the forests, we should work together. And that ends with the question, what development do we want? The minister has already given the answer. It's the SDGs. We should all work on the SDGs, and this is sort of a shared effort of the whole world. And so this is where we end. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hoffmann, for such an enlightening presentation. We will open up the session for Q&A. We'll let Dr. Hoffmann to take his seat first. I think we'll get the wireless mic to be taken from the stage for Dr. Hoffmann to answer from the floor. Can we have someone pick up the microphone and pass it to Dr. Hoffmann? Okay, we'll open up the Q&A sessions. Let me begin with 2 questions for myself. Then we get another 2-3 questions, and then we let Dr. Hoffmann to answer the first 5 questions. My first question is, when you present some of the major issues in the EU communities which trigger the interest in this palm oil issues, is those sentiments by the NGOs, and then the city versus the other one. But you have not talked about the competing industries that actually is competing with the palm oil. For example, is this happening around the world, whereby, for example, the soya producers are actually competing with palm oil for the sources of fat in the world? I believe, other than those items that you listed out, these industries are also part of the players in the issues of palm oil issues. And the second one is, while palm oil has been recognized as one of the major sources for nutrition globally, as you said in German, a major portion has been used for biofuel. While we can accept the fact that this is a disproportionate use of palm oil, it is mind-boggling why the EU is banning the production of palm oil instead of banning the use of palm oil for biofuel. I mean, there's a need for palm oil as a source for food, for nutrition. But instead of banning the use of palm oil as biofuel, you rather choose to ban everything. So those are my 2 questions. I like the participants to to raise a few more questions before we ask Dr. Hoffmann to answer the questions. Do you have any questions from the floor? Or we can let Dr. Hoffmann to answer the first two questions first.
Your first question was regarding about soya and other seeds, even oil-producing seeds, and the difference to palm oil. There is some, like in Brazil, they're cutting down the rainforest and planting soy. And the soy is imported to Germany as well. There you have a point. Definitely there have a point, and this should be negotiated once more, because you cannot, on the one hand, say we ban palm oil on the one hand side, and on the other side you don't say anything about soy. But the core point is the conversion. Conversion of forests into agricultural production. This is the core. And that should be sort of punished, or not punished, but how do you say, it should be the center of the political activities, that it's done in the same way to avoid the destruction of forests. This is the core point. And I think it's a very bad situation that we are talking about palm oil and we're not talking about the big thing. The big thing is a free trade agreement between Malaysia and the European Union. And this is more important, and it's terrible that a little thing like we're talking about 400,000 tons of palm oil, which are on dispute, if you want so. And this little thing has such a huge effect. We should continue with the free trade agreement and revise, this is my personal opinion, or the opinion of my party, should revise the negotiations with the EU. And you have a right point that's saying it's your own fault how you use palm oil. Yeah, it's like, but the general line in the EU is to ban all kinds of biofuels, all kinds, because we think we need the arable land for food production in the long run. So this is not an attack on Malaysia. This is a general line which we think in Europe is right for the world in general. So you have definitely a point in that not all seeds are treated the same way, but it's about conversion. We have to stop those conversions of forest land into agricultural land. And it's also, I was blaming the German government for that as well, because we in Europe, we have loss of agricultural land, and it's sort of transferred to Africa. So they're producing the foods in Africa, whereas we go back and say, okay, we need this for settlement, we need this for this and that, or industrial plants, or parking, or traffic, or so, and let other people produce the food for us. This is something we should share as well, like a shared burden for all sides.
Thank you, Dr. Hoffmann. Let me take a few more questions from the floor. Do you have any other questions? Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Hoffmann. I'm Ong Yu Hock from the Business Ethics Institute of Malaysia. We are an NGO, but we don't deal with advocacy of plantation products and all that. Our role is to promote good business ethics as well as strong governance in any organizations, including government and NGOs as well, and of course business entities. Okay. So along that line of ethics and all that, I hear what you are saying. The key issue here is conversion. So my understanding from our associates in the plantation industry is that the EU, the Renewable Energy Act, there is a term called indirect land use change, right? ILUC. So the data that is used to to measure the conversion was taken from 2008 to 2015. And the data show that the acreage of conversion under palm oil during that time, majority of that from Indonesia, was about 2.84 million hectares. And for soybean, over the same period of time, was also about 2.8 million hectares. However, the UC, instead of using the actual acreage to determine the impact of conversion, in this case, they use percentage. So the plantation people, based on their feedback to me, is that they are not against, and in fact, they have no right to challenge the European Union in terms of the need to preserve the land, to preserve the forest, to reduce conversion. Their point here is that the arithmetic around that has to be fair, because the acreage of palm oil from 2008 to 2015 was based on a smaller acreage, and therefore, even though the absolute acreage is about the same as soybean in terms of conversion, it bumps up the percentage for palm oil versus soybean. So that is something that I guess a developing country has always been struggling with. So along the line of good ethical practice, whether the world is giving a fair play to developing countries' industry. So that's my question to you.
Do you have any other questions? Okay. Okay. We have another one. Okay.
Hi, my name is Min from Institute of Iksan. So my question is, we know that since the European Union is banning the palm oil production, the palm oil export activities has been declining gradually. So we also acknowledge that Europe is a big market leader and most countries view it as an important export destination. So do you think that other countries would have any spillover effect as to comply with the European Union requirement? Thank you.
One more questions? I would like to ask whether the fact that palm oil plantations, when they are fully grown, they are like a forest as well. So they also absorb carbon dioxide and produce oxygen. And if the argument of forest removal is based on that carbon removal and oxygen depletion, then is that argument being considered in the European Union debate that plantations, oil palm plantations, are actually a kind of forest, and they do absorb a big amount of carbon and release a big amount of oxygen. In fact, if people are not used to Malaysia, tourists, they come to Malaysia, they see oil palm plantation from far, they see this is like artificial forest. You know, it's like a forest, but very well behaved trees which grow in lines and very, very organized. That's my question. Thank you. Do you have another one? Okay. Datuk.
I just want to echo to what Professor Hassan just mentioned just now. When you're talking about oil palm plantation as forest, what is also important is that we are planting them for minimum of 25 years. It is not like other annual crop where you plant every 6 months or 3 months you harvest that. But once you plant oil palm, they will be there for minimum 25 years. And then After that, you do planting. Maybe 1 year is without oil palm, then again, another 25 years to 30 years, there'll be oil palm. So it's like a forest because we're there for a long duration. Thank you. Just to add on. Thank you.
If I can relate from my father's experience, he's a felda planters. I think once the old tree is chopped down, another tree will come up within 6 months, less than even 6 months. So I think it won't take even a year. Yeah. Do you have any other questions? If not, then I'd like Dr. Hoffmann to respond for that.
Thank you very much for the question. Starting from the beginning, of course, the conversion from what you said, if you want a fair level playing field, and this is, of course, you have a point there. I mentioned it already that if you look at soy and these things, it's different. But of course, palm oil has been, to a high degree, combined with conversion, whereas soybean production has been also sort of agricultural land, annual crops being changed to soybeans. So this is the difference. So come back to the point, the conversion is the problem, is the point. So once the conversion is done, and then coming to your question, once the conversion is done, of course you are right, we're in a sort of a cycle then, and also palm oil is binding or sequestering carbon dioxide, that's for sure, yeah. But we have to look at we have to stop the conversion, because conversion, we had the biodiversity before, and now we have almost zero biodiversity. But it's the same if you have other agricultural land. If you plant corn or something, there is hardly any animals in corn. And so, but if you look at a rainforest, you have thousands of animals, thousands of fungi, thousands of insects, different species, and so forth. So, coming back, the conversion is the real problem. And the question about good governance and ethics, we have, in Europe, they have sort of labeled palm oil as a bad product. So you have labels on Nutella saying this is palm oil free Nutella. So this is, and there was a trial regarding that, but Nutella won the trial because there's no negative message. It's just saying there is no palm oil in Nutella, as it was before. It's not saying palm oil is bad, so it's just saying there's no palm oil in there. But definitely this is sort of a negative campaign for palm oil, and this is the problem. It's also the problem for politicians. Like if you have a negative campaign, and if all of a sudden the majority joins in and says palm oil is bad and so forth, and this is what probably politicians in the European Union were facing when they made these regulations. There's no other explanation for this kind of regulation. And so as a politician, I know when people get hysterical, when people get loud, it's sometimes hard to withstand and just say, no, we're just basing things on facts rather than on emotions. This is a liberal approach to base politics on facts rather than emotion. And the question of that the EU regulations might spill over to other countries. I mean, the ban on palm oil for you is not an important amount. But I think the important fact is that you fear that those regulations or the idea of banning palm oil will spill over to other countries. And so as Europe was setting the standards for certain politics in the past. But I wouldn't be so afraid. As I said, some of it is hysterical. And so I think we should work on this problem together, saying let's put the the free trade in the first place, and negotiate this palm oil I tell it is a little problem. Actually, it's not very much, but it's an emotional debate, and it takes some time to bring emotions down once in a while. So I think there is a good chance to review that And the European Union also already said they're going to review the regulation in, I think, 2022 or something like that. So that's not very long from here. And so I think the spillover can be avoided when the review is done.
Okay. Standing here, I can see as soon as he's rubbing and scratching his hands. For me, it's a sign that he's eager to respond to some of these issues. If he's wish, then I would like to give some space for Datuk Seri to make some response to the issues that we raised here tonight.
Well, just a quick one. I think the idea of, rather the point of conversion of forest into agricultural land is very much pertinent to note. Because if we talk from the perspective of UN SDGs, I've mentioned earlier to Dr. Hoffmann, planet, people, and also profit. We encounter some issues and arguments, particularly in African region. African region is the, I would say, incoming region. They want to develop, and of course, in the course of development, they will have to cut. They have to do deforestation. And when we put a limit on the deforestation, they need an income to their country. And the issue here is that the idea of saying that we can't do deforestation, it will limit their potentials to the maximum. So again, when you talk about sustainable, we must also think how to handle it in the sense that we don't impoverish that kind of region that that want to develop to the maximum. So this is the issue that intertwine between the idea of sustainable agenda in the way we want to ensure that the people, or rather the group of that region, wants to push to the limit in terms of their development. They want to get out from poverty, and at the same time they have this challenge. I think the European Union, in particular the developed countries, must also understand this predicament. Otherwise, when we talk about UN SDG, it's only a mere rhetoric. That's one point. Another point is, I think on this managing this dilemma of what is the future direction of palm oil in particular, especially the strategic market like EU. Look, we are going towards, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Europe is going towards no diesel in 2025, if I'm mistaken, 2030. And I recall a few of my encounter with leaders from EU. They're saying that the future will be the electric car. See? And when you talk about electric car, you also talk about the source of power is the battery. And I wonder whether there is enough study that battery can be handled sustainably, or rather we opt for biodiesel, for biofuel. That we have extensive studies that shows that if certain elements or certain percentage of biofuel can mix together with the diesel, it will have some good impact on the environment, rather than the study that when we focus more on the battery, we don't have the sustainable management of the battery. Of course, when we talk about battery, we talk about the elements in the battery. We have to do minings and all that. So these are all the things which need some enlightened point of view from our friends from EU, so that we can understand from the perspective of environment in its totality. Otherwise, there will always both sides of arguments, but I think we can appreciate. Well, the rest of us, rest assured, Dr. Hoffmann, we in Malaysia, of course, we push very hard to ensure that our income, this is the revenue, among the important revenue for the country, is being handled sustainably. We are pushing very hard, I'm telling you, for MSPO certification, Malaysian Sustainable Palm Oil. You mentioned your presentation is roundtable RSPO, yeah? RSPO. We also advocate our own MSPO, and it is a daunting task, I must say. Up until now, we managed to achieve almost 40%, and we're working very hard for the rest few months before January 2020 to ensure that we can achieve that target 100%. So it is not something easy for us, and of course we try to accommodate in the sense that our friends from EU or our strategic markets from other parts of the world, which requires that palm oil must be up to that standard, must be sustainably managed, and I think we must be fair. We hope that this kind of argument and whatever mentioned points raised by our friends or colleague here can create a new narrative in terms of fair distribution of wealth, I must say, to our friends or to those policymakers in the EU. I noticed that European Union Parliament has finished with the election. Maybe Doctor can share or rather give your view what will be the future direction post-election of European Union, because of course as the policy makers here we need to go there and again start talking and negotiating. So I think this is another round of negotiation, I must say. But let me end by this. The country's economy believes on the shared prosperity. So when you mention about shared prosperity, means that not only we want to have a free trade, and we also want a fair trade. So this is the agenda that we need to work together. Thank you.
Thank you, His Excellency. Unless Dr. Hoffmann wants to respond to His Excellency's remarks, I will bring the session to conclusion. You want to make a...
Just a little remark and answering your topics. I think the EU measures regarding palm oil will not encourage other countries to invest in palm oil. So this might be a good news for Malaysia as well. And I think we cannot debate deforestation anymore. We're on a suicidal trip in this world. We have to stop this. Otherwise, this is before everything. And it's also, it's before prosperity. We have to share prosperity in this world, I agree. But we have to, at the same time, to stop deforestation in the countries. And of course, those countries who are on the way of developing them themselves have the most of the forests, like Congo, Brazil. These are the important forests. They are still remaining, and we have to stop them. And of course, we have to give them an economic model so they can survive and have income with other commodities, and of course industrialization. And this is technical transfer. Industrialization comes with technical transfer. And if Malaysia has more technical transfer, and this comes also with free trade. And this is sort of a liberal economical cycle, which I think can be done in a fair wise. Regarding the cars driven by batteries and electrical, I share your views. This is not a general solution. I think this is a liberal approach. We don't think that you can rely on a single technique. You have to be open-minded. And like we have a technique which we call e-fuels now. This is sort of catching the carbon dioxide from the air and make new artificial fuels out of it. And this is driven by sun energy. So if it's driven by sun energy or wind energy or something like that, this would be the carbon dioxide neutral energy. And that would be much better than using all kinds of raw materials into batteries, and you don't know where to put those batteries after the use of it, and it's another environmental problem we are creating. So I think biofuels might be a little part of the solution as well, I have to admit, but the general line should be whatever we can eat, we should preserve for as food.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hoffmann. With that, we come to the end of the session tonight. It's already past 10:40 p.m. Before we adjourn, I would like to invite Professor Datuk Rizwan Osman, together with our guest, His Excellency Deputy Minister Dr. Hoffmann, to come on the stage for photo session and presentation of the memento. With that, we have come to the end of our session. I would like to wish good night to everyone.